On this edition of Off the Record, we spoke with Talos Farris, the Fall River Veterans Agent. Welcome to Off the Record. I'm Dave Souza, along with Joe Good. Today our guest is Talos Farris. He's the Director of the Veterans Services in Fall River, Mass.
How you doing?
Welcome.
How you doing?
Thank you.
Tell us a little about yourself. Tell us about your service and we can kind of work up to where you are now.
All right. So I joined the United States Navy in 1998, right out of high school, about 2 weeks after graduation. I think I initially signed up when I was in the 11th grade, so I knew before I even graduated from high school that joining the military was something that I really, really wanted to do. I went to boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois. Great place. But I was there for a little bit of time and got caught up in the winter weather there in the Great Lakes, just outside of Chicago. So I got to experience snow up to my knees and further. And then from there, I was sent to San Diego, California, where I trained to go with the Fleet Marine Force out at Camp Pendleton, and also spent a little bit of time at the Naval Hospital in San Diego, working there in radiology. I think I worked in the neurosciences department as well, just learning what it was to be a hospital corpsman.
What attracted you to that?
That's a funny question you asked that. So when I went to speak to the recruiters at the recruiter's office, you sit down with them, and after you've taken your ASVAB, they give you a list of the potential jobs that you could, be assigned or you could apply to. And at that time, I guess the Navy was really, really big on trying to get personnel for their nuclear programs, because they have nuclear reactors and subs and on the aircraft carriers. And so that was the very first thing that the recruiter offered me. Because of my ASVAB score, they wanted me to essentially become a nuke of some sort, and that was not appealing in any way. I was the kind of kid that, was extremely active, and I test the limits on almost everything that I did growing up. So that was my intention with the military, was to test myself. So, sitting in a dark space in managing and monitoring a nuclear reactor just wasn't going to do it for me. So I immediately turned that down and asked them for what the most difficult things they had on the list possibly that I could do. And he mentioned being a hospital corpsman. And I was like, what is that? What is a hospital corpsman? What do they do? What does that job entail? And he kind of broke it down to me, and I heard probably 5% of it, because once he said you get a chance to go with the Marines and Special Forces.
That's all you heard?
That's all I heard. Everything he said before that went in one ear and out the other. And so, I knew I wanted to test myself in that way. So that's what I signed up for. I went to Hospital Corpsman school and learned what it was to, be a hospital corpsman, and learn the history of the hospital corps and their time in service, especially with the Marine Corps. The hospital corpsmen have a long history of serving with the Marines, because the Marine Corps is a part of the United States Navy, contrary to what a lot of people understand and believe. And they don't have medical personnel. So that's where the naval component of that comes in, is since the Navy has medical personnel, those personnel end up going with the Marine Corps. Whenever they deploy, they get stationed with them. So that is the reason I signed up. And, in the beginning, it was, you're going to get a chance to go to Camp Pendleton and train to be with the Marines and, get yourself ready, to live that lifestyle. So I was all for it.
And you're training basically like a nurse, or like a doctor?
In essence, more like a nurse and less like a doctor per se. We had a lot of leeway as a hospital corpsman, especially when you train to do combat medicine. It's emergency medicine on the fly, as I like to explain it to people. Because the Marines and your other sailors that are there on the battlefield, you're going to see a host of injuries that aren't typical to your ER. Right. Battlefield injuries are a nice way of describing it, kind of gruesome, right? And it's not the type of things that the average person will be able to say that they saw working stateside at a hospital anywhere. You've got blast injuries, gunshot wounds, explosions, and the byproduct of that, And then, of course, in Iraq, they use IEDs, so that presents a whole nother mess of different types of injuries as well.
You did see some battlefield
Yes,
action,
ma'am.
didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you maybe tell us a little bit where?
So, after doing all my training out in California, I got orders to Newport, Rhode Island, which I was not happy about because I did all this training to go with the Marine Corps or with a Special Forces unit, and I got selected to come to Newport here. So that Newport was my first true official duty station. And I kicked and screamed about it the whole way, and no one cared. That's the military for you, right? So I leave San Diego, California, come into Newport. I didn't own a coat or a jacket that wasn't a part of my uniform because I had been in California for quite a while, and you live in Southern California, it barely even rains. I don't think I saw it rain once while I was there. So when I got off the plane in late October, it had already snowed here. And I was in complete shock. I was in complete shock coming from Georgia. We don't get snow often there. And you get an inch or two down in Georgia, they shut everything down. So I walk across the jetway coming out of the plane, and I had on a pair of flip-flops, a tank top, some shorts. I got a shell necklace on. I'm living the California lifestyle, so to speak, the beach life. And I step across that jetway, and I immediately knew, okay, it's time to go buy some things. So I grabbed my sea bag and jumped in a cab and said, hey, I need you to take me to the closest mall because I don't own any real long pants. Like, there was just a couple of things I needed to get. But that was my introduction to the Northeast, was being stationed in Newport. So I did time over there at the Naval Ambulatory Care Center. And that was also the command center, I want to say, for Naval Healthcare New England at the time. So the commanding officer for all of the naval healthcare facilities was there in Newport as well. So,
How many years were you active?
total almost 15. Yeah, almost 15 years.
So you got to see a lot.
I did. So while I was stationed here at Newport, and again, it's certain things happen in an adult's life or in a person's life that you'll never forget. And I'm sitting in a class to get certified to read a machine, a specific machine that's associated with monitoring the heart and going through a basic cardiac dysrhythmia course is what it was called. And we're in the class and we're learning about the different rhythms of the heart and how to read them on this monitor and things like that. And another instructor, not ours, walks into the room with a look on his face that you can never forget. And he simply says, no one is going to believe what's happening right now. He left the room, didn't say another word, went and grabbed, and I'm dating myself a little bit, God help me, right? 98, it's not that long ago, but he walks back in the room with the televisions that we all remember from being in school, where it's on this big push cart and it's got the strap around it, and he comes in, he plugs it in and gets it hooked up to the cable, I think is what it was. And there on the television screen was, a plane, and it just connected with the first tower in New York. And so we're sitting in class on the naval installation just in awe. This can't be real life, right? And just as we kind of were able to get a hold of ourselves for what we had just seen, we started, the rumblings started happening in the classroom. We're talking and we're going, well, clearly this isn't fake, right? It's not fake, this is real. Something is actually happening that none of us had ever seen before. And that's when the second plane hit on the television screen. And so it was like, the best way I know how to describe that is, well, whether I wanted it this way or not, I'm about to get what I asked for, clearly, because everyone in their right mind knows you're not going to attack the United States and not see us behind it. So in the back of my mind, I was weirdly excited, to be honest, because I was somewhere I didn't want to be and I wasn't doing the things I had trained to do. So I knew right away that, things were going to happen fairly fast. There was going to be some kind of investigation, and they were going to figure out, where this all stemmed from, and we were going to be going somewhere.
You knew it.
And I knew with my training and my designations that I was probably going to get exactly what I asked for, and I did. Shortly after 9/11, in a matter of a week or so, everyone at the Naval the naval command there at the clinic had been brought up to be able to be deployed from a readiness standpoint. So all immunizations, that whole deal was done within a week's time frame. And then I want to say within a month or so of 9/11 happening, I got orders to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Expedited orders at that. So
Wow.
I don't think I was set to leave Newport for like another year plus. So I gladly took my orders because, you know, what I actually signed up for had unfortunately happened. And I went down to North Carolina and started training there with the Marine Corps. And I go in knowing that I'm going to deploy. I'm about to see combat one way or the other. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And so that was, I don't know, the next 6, 8, 9 months, a boatload of training to be able to go out to the desert and do whatever it is they asked us to do. But in that time frame, in that short time frame of training there, I knew I had found my spot, you know.
You were deployed
Yes.
several.
Several times. I know when we talked before, I know I talked about surgical company deployment. But my very first push into Iraq was the actual initial invasion of Iraq from Kuwait. We had been sitting in Kuwait for, I don't know, the better part of maybe 4 weeks. And we got a call one night and said, hey, everybody is getting together at this spot and stand by. So we did. And, you know, you're standing in the middle of the desert at night. That's the other part I remember so vividly. We're standing in the middle of the desert on a impromptu base, and there's a general standing on the stage giving us the pump-up speech, is what I call it. And that's when I knew for sure we were about to go into harm's way here really, really soon. And I want to say a day and a half later, we made the push into Iraq. Yeah.
Talk about a change of.
Yeah, it's a quick change of scenery. But again, it is what I signed up for. I'm never shy about that. You know, when people walk up to me now, and as a veteran, they thank for my service and things like that. I'm appreciative of the saying, but I tell people all the time, I had a blast in the military, good, bad, or indifferent, no matter what they experience. One of the things I found during my time of service, especially when you're deployed, is that one of the things that makes being in the military a great thing or a bearable thing for a lot of people is that you're going through really sucky situations, but you're not doing it alone, right? You're doing it with your brother and sister to the left and right of you. And truly and honestly, like when things are happening on the battlefield, you do the things you do so that you can help make sure that that person to your left and right come home. It's a lot of it is thoughtless. A lot of it is reactionary because you've been trained so well. They do a really, really good job of training you as a hospital corpsman, as a Marine, a soldier. So, you know, I don't think it's ever a question of if you're trained well enough. I think it's just a matter of, you know, what you decide is going to be, you know, your push to do the things you're doing. And so for me, it was easily my fellow Marines and stuff. So.
How long were you in total?
Oh, God. So I was in Camp Lejeune for 8 years or so. And out of that 8 years, I spent maybe 3.5 of it actually at Camp Lejeune. The rest of it was deployed or training to deploy.
So you go through, you saw some, we've spoken before, you saw some really horrible things.
Yeah.
And then you get out. Maybe you could tell us a little bit, because I think what you bring to the job you have right now is you have such an understanding of where a lot of the vets are coming from who might be having a hard time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Me getting out of the military was not necessarily by choice. You fast forward many years after my time at Camp Lejeune, I was in a spot where I'm going through survivor's remorse. I want to be deployed more than I want to be stateside because I got to a point where I felt more comfortable being in the desert than I did being at the corner gas station back in North Carolina, or going through a drive-through or ordering a coffee somewhere. Like, it didn't, no part of what everybody else was doing as a civilian felt right to me, because I knew I had Marines deployed and I'm still able-bodied. I want to be out there with my guys. But, you know, everyone at some point in the military has moved on to their next duty station or what have you. So I took orders to Guantanamo Bay, truly and honestly, to get away from everything and everyone. That is, I had one other option, and I knew I didn't want to be in Japan that long. So I took the orders to Guantanamo Bay, and as soon as I got there, I put in for an extension to be able to stay longer.
Did you really?
Right away.
Yeah.
I think within my first 90 days, I put in for that extension.
So the transition from being active duty military to civilian,
It was rough.
it was a rough one.
Extremely rough. My body had started to tell on me. You know, at that time, I think I was, 32, going on 33, and I personally felt like I could do anything. But at that time, the knee injuries had built up, the back, so many different things that I was not operating at my best. And so the decision was made that I either needed to, how did the counselor put it? Counselor said, you either need to consider becoming a musician or get out. Well,
Do you play an instrument?
I don't.
Okay, then.
So, you
That was a
know,
pretty easy decision.
they're in like a easy decision. But, you know, the easiest thing I could have done, I did do for myself. You know, my command allowed me to go to San Antonio for a while to do some self-healing. There was a program out in Fort Sam Houston area that was being run for soldiers and Marines and sailors that had deployed and come in contact with combat and, you know, been through some things and needed to clear their minds and get into a better space. Thank God the command sent me there, because had they not, I don't know that my outcome would be what it had become. It was a chance for me to get some tools to help deal with my PTSD that was clear to everybody else and not so clear to me. And it just gave me the opportunity to at least put some things in my tool bag to be able to help me deal, so to speak. And I'm very grateful for the existence of that program, because like I said, had that not existed and I not gone, I do not believe that my outcome would be what it was.
So do you bring these tools that you've learned for yourself? Maybe you were appointed by Mayor Coogan, correct?
That's correct.
As the director.
That's correct. I did an interview, 2 of them, almost 3 technically. I got wind while I was here at BCC that
Maybe real quick, what
What did you do here at PCC?
So once I eventually made my way back to New England, and that was a road, trust me. I had to work on several things. I had to get myself in a position to where I felt comfortable being around my kids. I never wanted my kids to not see me operating in a way that wasn't me. And so for many years, I kept them at bay. I kept my family at bay. And so, you know, once I was in a position and felt like I had control and I had more things to offer than not. That's how I viewed it, right? As a veteran, sometimes we discredit so many of the things that we've done, and we're harder on ourselves than anybody will ever be. But I was holding myself to an unbelievable standard at the time, but eventually I got past that, and I made myself available to show my family that, you know, I had returned to, you know, some semblance of who I was prior to going to Camp Lejeune. And we were able to kind of repair things and get ourselves in a position where we could actually be together.
Wow.
And that started in Georgia, actually. My family moved from here to Georgia while I was, you know, finishing up taking care of myself. And at that time, I was working for Kaiser Permanente, and I was working at Walmart overnight, because Walmart was the very first real job that I got once I moved back to Georgia. And I was one of those people that, you know, if Walmart is offering, I'm going to take that job because I want to work. I don't not want to work. So I took the overnight managerial position at Walmart, and I worked there for quite a while. And then eventually I got on with Kaiser Permanente, working at one of their call centers. But that allowed me the ability to kind of get myself refocused back to being a professional, and being of assistance to people. To be honest with you, that's what Kaiser Permanente offered. But during that time, my family came down to Georgia, and we worked on us as a family and putting things back together, and learning what our new normal was going to be. We get through that, but the latter part of us being there, we had to take care of my dad, who was dying of cancer, and we didn't know. And that was tough, because I blamed a lot of that on myself for not being around, dealing with my own personal issues. So we didn't find out that he even had cancer until he was stage 4.
Oh.
So it was pretty much a hospice tour, if you will, at the house. But I'm also grateful that I went through the things I went through, because when that time came, I was in a position to not only have him be in my home and be taken care of by his family, he got to see his grandchildren every day.
Yeah.
And for that, I'm extremely grateful. So right after he passed away, we sold the house and moved back up this way. My middle child, my stepdaughter, is severely autistic. And in the South, they don't have as many supportive services, and they don't even have really and truly, honestly, the framework to have enough supportive services for it to even compare to Mass. So it was a fairly easy decision, but that decision was made more so out of the fact that I couldn't stay in the house anymore. So my dad passed there.
Right.
That was my hero. So.
Your dad was a police officer.
He was.
Yeah.
He got injured in the line of duty and had to retire from being a police officer. And then he became a social worker, of all things.
Wow. Well, you got some good genes there, huh?
But yeah, so we move on past that, and we come back to Mass, and get ourselves situated back to where we're originally from, or where my family's originally from. So
Tell us about what you're doing now as a veterans agent.
So I go through that interview process. I did a couple of interviews, and one of the things that kind of caught me off guard was I wasn't looking for the job. I wasn't looking for the job. It was the last thing that was on my mind. I'd already been helping out a little bit down at the VABC over on Pine Street, just as a business owner, just as a regular vet that lived in the city. I had tried my hand at being a part of some of the other veteran organizations in the area, and I'm never bashful about it, and some of them weren't so welcoming. So, it was an easy choice, a place that I can easily see that's helping veterans every single day, that the door is open. This is a spot for me. I can come in, and I might not be able to give a lot, but I give my little bit. So I was doing that. I was going to school here, and I took the interview off of the suggestion of the vet center advisor here at BCC. And he just walked up to me. He goes, "This position is open, and I'm telling you, you're a perfect fit for it." And I go, "What position are you talking about?" And he told me what position it was. And I was like, you know what? I need a little bit of time to think about this. And I eventually went ahead and submitted my package to the city. I got a call right away for my first interview, and I got a call right away for my second interview. And before I knew it, I was sitting in the mayor's office discussing terms.
Nice. And when was this?
This was the end of May of 2024. So I got hired on. My first day on the job was June 1st. And the VSO community opened their arms and welcomed me, and they made sure I was able to get out to the training that they had going on that week out at Cape Cod. So I go out to Cape Cod my first day on the job, and do training with the state, with ELVS, and the other VSOs, and everyone kind of welcomed me in, and got to know several people, and understood I was inside of another group of veterans that were doing things to help veterans that have gone through stuff like I had gone through, and many other things. So it was at that training conference I got to really see the breadth of things that were possible as a VSO, no matter what city or town you were in, that you could do for other veterans.
Massachusetts, they've got such I mean, they really have services for veterans. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't think any other state.
I don't know of another state that has as many offerings for their veterans as the state of Massachusetts.
Right.
I would venture out on the limb and say they are leading the way in many, many areas when it comes to veterans. Are there a couple of things that could be a little bit easier? Absolutely, and that could be anywhere. But just the availability of the types of resources that come from just within the state itself.
What are some of your duties?
So I'm charged with making sure that every veteran in my catchment area knows the benefits that are available to them that they've earned, both federal and state and local if there were some. What does that mean? That means letting the general public know about Chapter 115 and now the HERO Act, since it's been signed into law, and providing them with an avenue to get whatever it is that they need. I utilize my other VSOs in the surrounding areas that I've made an intentional effort to make sure that they understand Fall River is open to collaboration and supporting them as well. Not just everyone in the area operating on an island. I don't think that is the answer to solving the issues that veterans face in our region. I think if we were to work together, we could do a heck of a lot more, and that's what we've been doing. That's everything from helping getting veterans off the street from homelessness, dealing with addiction if they have that as an issue, mental health issues, making sure that they have the avenues to get help with each and every one of those things is basically, what I'm charged with. Making sure that, financially, if they're doing bad, let's see if they're eligible for Chapter 115 benefits to help lift them up a little bit.
With all your ups and downs,
Yes,
does
sir.
that help you dealing with these veterans around here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny that you phrase that way. So I was sitting and talking with two veterans yesterday, one of which is on the end of coming out of a situation, right? He's gone through some things since his combat time, and he's also found himself homeless and lost his family and dealing with different things from an emotional standpoint as well. And to see him be in a position now where he's no longer dealing with that homelessness, because for the first time in a long time, he's moving into his own place.
Wow.
They're getting their kid back and just all those different things. I can easily speak to him about those things and what it's like to transition through each and every one of those things. But also it makes it easy for me to say, hey, now that you're at this point, what's your next step? Well, I can tell you part of it needs to be turn around and help the next person up. Right? I think that each and every vet should take time out of their day to help lift up one of their fellow brothers and sisters without question, no matter what that person is going through, because each and every one of us deserves that much. I honestly believe that. So that's part of what makes doing this job, for me, extremely easy.
What are for vets in this region? What are some of their bigger challenges?
There's a host.
A host of challenges.
There's a host. So one of the things that we're seeing now in the Southeast region here in Massachusetts, as most people know, the price of living has just skyrocketed. And that's every aspect, from your groceries, your gas, but most importantly, the ability to be able to live in a home or an apartment. The price of doing that skyrocketed. And for the older veteran community, that's put a lot of people in a bad spot, especially here in the Fall River area and surrounding. A lot of these folks have lived in rentals that were manageable from a financial standpoint for many, many years, 15, 20. And then you get to a point where the reality of the rest of the world is starting to hit, because the folks that own these properties have now aged out of the ability to be able to take care of them. So they're either selling them to a company or an investor. They're trying to give them to their kids first, but that's not the society we live in anymore. Most kids don't take on the things that their parents have a lot of times. So these older vets now are being faced with rent that's twice what they're used to, but still having to make it off the same income. And that by far is the biggest challenge, trying to make sure that you can find suitable living situations for older veterans and or their surviving spouse. That's another area that is a big concern for me anyways, is that the surviving spouses that are left behind after the veterans pass have to be able to live too. They're going through the same struggle. You know, I have surviving spouses that have lived in places, again, for 15, 20 years. The property gets sold to a property management company that go in, they do whatever they do to the apartment to spruce it up, and then they raise the rent substantially. And now this person that's either already on Social Security or solely living off of veteran benefits now has to find a way to figure out how to make it, even though their rent went up $1,500, $1,600, $1,700.
How do you help folks like that?
It's a couple of different things that we attempt to do. So the first thing we attempt to do is reach out to the landowner, the property owner, and say, hey, you know, what's the likelihood of this unit being able to stay at a reasonable price? We don't get a lot of takers on that one, just because of, like I said, of how things have moved. Most of the people are doing what they're doing for many reasons. Some people, COVID pushed them out of the ability to continue to maintain their properties, so they had to sell them, right? And for others, it's the idea of, you know, being a business owner and you're in the real estate business. You're not trying to hear me on the phone talking about, hey, what can we do to keep this apartment at $800, $900 a month when everyone around you is getting 12, 14, 15. So then we move on to assisting in the short term with financial resolutions if we have that available to us. So the city had ARPA money for a good while. So that was one of the tools we used to kind of help stem the tide a little bit. But the biggest answer has been assisting people to move out of the area, unfortunately, or into, you know, either assisted or non-assisted elderly living places. So those have been the answers for those that qualify for those types of things. For the younger veteran, that is not a realistic thing. So some of these folks are ending up on the street or straight up living in their cars, or they've ended up in the camps around the city and other places close by. Or they too, you know, get referred out to the western part of the state where there is somewhere for them to be put up. The Veterans Transition House has been a major help for us. We've got a couple of Fall River veterans over there, but the shelters, wherever we can find a place, we try to do that.
I remember when we've had a conversation before. I interviewed you before when I worked at the newspaper. One of the things I asked you back then was what were one of your personal goals, and you told me that you wanted to start bringing in the younger veterans.
Absolutely.
And where's that at? Why? What's been happening with that?
Where am I at in that journey? Okay, so one of the beautiful things about me coming to school here at BCC was the Veterans Center that's here. And a lot of people have a preset image or idea of what a veteran looks like, right? That's the old guy with the hat. And that's not necessarily the case. So we have younger veterans. I consider myself to be one of the younger veterans. I'm only 44. But we have veterans even younger than me that, you know, are still serving either with the National Guard or on active duty, or folks have done, you know, 1 or 2 tours and called it quits and now come back to the South Coast region and are going to school here at BCC. And the Vet Center here is that central hub where they all kind of end up congregating at one time or another. So that's been a touch point for me to be able to get in contact with a lot of younger veterans, first and foremost. And then I go out of my way to look for younger veterans. I go out of my way. If you got a sticker on the back of your car and I happen to be right behind you and we go to the same place, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to hand you my card. And one of the more beautiful things I think that's happening is the women veterans recognition here in the city has been massive.
Big change in a couple of years, yeah.
It's been massive. I give all the kudos to the community stakeholder at the VABC, you know, going out of their way to be intentional about doing that as well. But I even approach women veterans. If you got a sticker on the back of your car or Jeep or whatever, and we're in the same space, I'm going to hand you a card. And I'm not that person that assumes just because you're a woman driving a vehicle with a vet anything on it, that you're not the veteran.
Right.
I go into that conversation saying, hey, you're a Marine or you're a soldier, I see the sticker on the back of your car. You know, I think it's a form of respect also to automatically assume that the woman isn't the veteran is a horrible misstep.
Right.
Because they serve just as well as we do.
So is it working? Are you getting?
I believe so. I believe so. So we've gotten the students here at BCC to be extremely involved in the community in many, many ways. They help here at the school with the mobile food pantry, almost to the point where sometimes they might be the only ones there. But, you know, inside of even a moment like that, it's glorious because look at what they're doing. BCC pumps out over 500 plus bags to support families across Bristol County. Every third Thursday of the month, they do that. And the student veterans here are a large part of how that gets successfully done. At this campus, Taunton, Attleboro, you know, New Bedford, this stuff goes out to all of those places. They also participate with the VABC. We've offered our hands and have helped over at the Veterans Kitchen. And then I've also gotten to a point now where I've gotten a hold of the position and understanding a little bit more of what is needed after correcting some things. So the ability to put programming out there that'll attract the younger veteran is one of the focuses that, you know, we have going on right now. We've got an event called Operation Game On coming up at the end of March, the 29th and the 30th. And there's intentionality behind that event. So the average age of a gamer, I think is around the age of 40, between 40 and 42. But we all know that those way younger than that game as well. That is one of the areas that I have found.
Let me understand. What is this event going to be with game? All right, explain it.
Operation Game On is the name of the event. And what I've done is I've reached out over the internet and I found a veteran nonprofit organization that's centered around gaming and the gaming community. And their goal is to make contact with veterans that are in the gaming space so that they understand there's even a group for you here inside of gaming where veterans congregate and we can sit and we can talk and we can develop friendships and camaraderie. Even though you're online.
Is this the first of its kind for your?
So there are a couple of organizations out there that exist to kind of make that known to the veteran community that games. But we reached out to Frost Call because they are actually home. Their home is here in Mass. So one of the large proponents of what they do is the mental health portion of it, and that is a focus coming out of my office is providing mental health availability of services to everyone, but also to that younger vet, because if they're a gamer, they isolate in that space. You can spend, and I know because I've done it, you can spend 8, 10, 12 hours on a video game and not think about the outside world at all. That's also a form of avoidance.
Sure.
Right? So with me knowing that, understanding that from a personal perspective, it's like, what is out there to reach that portion of our veteran community? And so that is why I reached out to frostcall.org to help us put on an event. So on day one of this event, we're going to host a mental health panel that's going to discuss self-care, peer-to-peer opportunities for people, not isolating, and then how to find community online that's veteran-centric, as well as what resources are out there for you as a veteran.
That sounds great. That sounds.
We're gonna host that here at BCC in conjunction with the gaming club and Student Veterans of America.
And the dates are
the 29th and the 30th of March.
And if there's any veterans out there who are interested, how do they?
So you'll be able to go online. Right now we have many flyers circulating around social media and on the city's webpage as well. There's a QR code where you go in. I wanted to make this a completely free event, but we had to get a little bit of money simply because we want to feed the people that are coming to this event, right? So we're charging only $5, and from that money we'll use the $5 to help buy snacks and things like that for people that are coming. But Frost Call, their director is also a veteran. He's also a mental health professional. It's just why he started the organization, because he had the foresight to see that there was a need for something like that. So he is a part of that panel. We have Dolly Gregg from the Veterans Transition House, who is a a mental health professional. I also work with her daily. She's a part of that panel. We have Christopher Acevides from the VA's Vet Center in Fairhaven, New Bedford. He'll be a part of that panel. We have the lead for peer-to-peer counseling from the Vet Center over at Pine Street. He'll be a part of that panel. I'll be a part of that panel. And we're going to sit down and discuss some easy to talk about things. We're going to discuss some hard to talk about things, all right? Suicide prevention is another one. If you allow yourself to isolate inside of the virtual world, we'll say you're very susceptible to becoming another one of the 22. And we want to try to reduce the number of people that are, easily pulled into being one of the 22 as much as possible. That number is way too high. So all of those things will be a part of our discussion panel. We're going to bring in as many bodies as we can that live and interact in the veteran space. We're even inviting the ROTC students, the young Marines, the invitation to go out today actually to the Mass Maritime Academy, to those folks as well. I've reached out to General Lisa Ahasi from the Air National Guard here in Mass so that she can make this event available to her personnel as well. We got an invitation going out to the Army National Guard here so that they know this is going on. I plan on hitting as many groups and as many people as possible so that they can understand there's other ways of handling things out there, and we can do it together as a big group and sit down and discuss it in game afterwards.
Well, it sounds like you really are thinking outside the box.
Absolutely.
And
if you continue to do things the same way they've always been done, you're not going to get a different result.
Do you ever get involved with the general public, people who want veterans to help out?
So a part of this, there's open invitation to the first responder community as well, because there's a lot of veterans inside the first responder community. But outside of that, not for this particular event.
No, but in general, though.
I hadn't considered it. I hadn't considered it because I personally feel like there's been such a drop off of what's been made available to the veterans in this particular area that I need to concentrate on getting that part right first. Once I have that at a point where I feel like we're giving them everything that we can, then I'll entertain, looking at things for the larger community.
Well, I wish you luck. That sounds like a great I want to go.
You're more than welcome to come. Please, absolutely, show up. Show up.
I just might.
And it's just one of the things that we're looking at doing. Another thing that is on the very, very forefront of the things that'll be coming out over 2025 is the attempt to get the veteran family involved as a whole. Okay, so any opportunity we get to host an event for veterans' families, that is something that we're going to jump at the chance to do, because it gives us a great chance to give them a touch point to see what resources are available to them. So just like at this gaming event, for the gaming event, we've invited the local VFW, some of the veteran nonprofit organizations, but then the VA is here. Mass Hire is here. There's many other organizations, Veterans Inc., the VABC, that's just to name a few that we're putting in the front of this event so you can see it as you walk in.
That's great.
These are the people that are here to assist you as well, not just my office. There are other avenues for you guys to get help. I think we're trying to get one of the service dog organizations to come down as well. That proves to always be a big hit.
Sure.
Whenever they bring the puppies in. People absolutely love it. I'm a huge proponent of it as well. So just trying to provide as many options to resources as possible is the goal. And I think I've learned in a short period of time how much families are affected when a veteran passes and they don't know what's out there for them. So again, the veteran family events will be centered around a theme of some sort, but the reality is we're really just trying to expose you to these resources that are there for you in a roundabout way, not pushing them on you, but just showing you it's here. And I think by doing so, we give the opportunity for the younger veteran to see that it's okay to be involved. And that's another one of the things we push to try to get the younger veteran into some of the veteran nonprofit organizations, because as these guys get older and they're not concentrating on pulling in the younger veteran, you make your organization at risk for it completely going away. and I don't want to see any of the veteran organizations in the city go away. I'd like to see them go out of their way to include the younger veteran so they can pass on their traditions and keep this thing going on past my generation.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of good going on.
Trying.
And thank you so much for coming in and being our guest. And let us know how the event goes.
We'll do. And again, you know what? I'll take care of it. I'll just send you an invitation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.